We're a few weeks away from the spring bear hunt in British Columbia, and every year, inevitably, it sparks a debate. I have Keith Beasley standing here with me right now from Canada in the Rough, the most watched hunting show. Keith, I want to ask you, because specifically when we talk about debate, David Suzuki has come out with a recent column in which he says it's time to end the grizzly bear, what he calls a trophy hunt. What say you?
I say that David Suzuki always has valid points depending on what topic it is. And when it comes to hunting, Suzuki can talk science or he can talk personal bias. And my opinion, and most hunting people's opinion about David Suzuki is, it's a personal bias. This is unfounded on science. If he wants to talk ethics and morals about shooting a bear, that's one thing, but make sure you're clear about that.
Well, there are a couple arguments for why David Suzuki says we need to put an end to the grizzly bear hunt. One of the reasons he says is because you, quite frankly, just leave the carcass right there in the woods. You don't have to take the meat out of the body. So when you kill this grizzly bear, you leave it right there in the woods, and that's unethical and inhumane.
Yes, and that has been some of the case over time. I don't know any hunters myself that have ever left a grizzly bear there. I've eaten grizzly bear, and my friends that hunt and most people I know have eaten grizzly bear. That is a claim, and I don't disagree with that going forward. But for the last 2 years, it's been in a motion, in a bill put forth by hunters to have that change, and they're supporting it. The BC Wildlife Federation, which represent hunters and anglers in British Columbia, is actually backing that motion strongly to have that change. So yes, he can cite that, but that's not currently the reason or the reason for he's calling this to be done. He doesn't want to see hunting, period. It doesn't matter if we're talking about grizzly bears today or rabbits tomorrow or beef in the grocery store the next day. Let's be clear about this. This is a personal bias and a personal propaganda agenda by David Suzuki to stop hunting, period.
Let's talk about some of the numbers. In British Columbia, it is estimated that the population of grizzly bears is about 15,000 large. Roughly every year, there are about 250 to 300 that are killed. So what is his biggest concern about this, then?
Well, his biggest concern is swaying numbers to show that science isn't matching up. And that's why I say, if we're talking personal bias, let's talk that. If we're talking science, let's talk that. So for science for a moment, agreed by most biologists, and we should preface this, all of these big studies are funded by hunters, and the revenue is driven by the hunting stream. So the science says there's 15,000 healthy bear population. They've been in places they've never been before. The per square kilometer per capita of bears and their ratio is as strong anywhere in the province as it is in the provincial parks where you can't hunt, which shows that it's a sustainable method. And only 2 to 4% of the entire bear population per year is harvested through hunters. And that's done through a lottery system where it's not just walk over the counter and buy a grizzly bear tag, where the regional and provincial biologists are managing and studying these bears with funds to decide if it's sustainable. The second it's not sustainable, it'll be cut out. And hunters will back that.
And ultimately, it's about maintenance too, right? Isn't it, Keith? Because you've got these grizzly bears, and let's be frank, they're about, potentially they could get up to 900 pounds. They're about 3 feet tall, and they reach up to speeds of 55 kilometers an hour. Ultimately, this is about safety and maintenance, and David Suzuki is saying that this is some sort of trophy kill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to for a second say we need to shoot grizzly bears to protect human life. There's a time and a place for that, absolutely, and if a bear's going to personally attack me, I'm going to shoot it. Human life is more important than animal life, in my opinion, and I think in most hunters. 4 people were killed or attacked in Canada last year with grizzly bears, but that's not why we're hunting them. Let's be frank. We're hunting them because they're a manageable, renewable resource, just like the same reason we harvest trees or we pull oil from the ground. It's part of our livelihood, part of our sustainability, of our people, of our culture, of our heritage. We eat these. I've eaten grizzly bears, and the hunters I know eat grizzly bears. And the reason they're being hunted is because the population needs to be maintained and controlled to help protect all the other 19 big game species in the province, like moose and caribou and elk and all those other wonderful things. Everything needs to be kept in check and balance. Humans have encroached on Mother Nature long, long ago. Now it's time to coexist and manage together. But to call a halt or a stop to hunting because someone doesn't agree with hunting, that's a whole other issue, in my opinion, that David Suzuki is trying to find.
And what is that issue? What is this really about then?
He's an anti-hunter.
He's just outright anti-hunter.
Absolutely.
And I think that there probably are a lot of people. Very quickly, I want to talk about Ontario, because last year there was a debate that was sparked. The Ontario government started a pilot program where they opened up the doors to spring hunting. And that was in part because there was a ban on it put in place back in 1999, $34 million going into various ways to maintain the population of bears, just quite frankly wasn't effective. Is that
wasn't effective, yeah. And this is back to science versus personal bias. The government at the time to win an election took the PETA movement, or the anti-hunting movement, to ban the spring bear hunt based on orphaned cubs. Science didn't dictate that. There was definitely some incidents where that happened, but that was not what took place. And therefore, they cut out the ban of spring bear hunting in Ontario, period. It cost the province millions and millions of dollars, not only in lost revenue as tourism, but in $34 million annually to try to prevent and stop all these bear rights programs that were deemed ineffective. Now, 15 years later, the Liberal government's back toying with it in certain ridings to try to bring it back in, to try to maintain population because the public's outcrying that the bears are everywhere.
Right.
And now we're desperate that our moose populations are in massive jeopardy because bears are one of the predators, not the only one to blame, but one of the predators that are eliminating the moose population by harvesting calves before they're mature. So this is a cycle that hunters are part of and want to be a part of to help sustain it. Hunters back science. The caribou have been shut down being harvested in Northwest Territories. Half of Quebec shut down. They're almost shut down in Newfoundland. Hunters back that because the science dictates that needs to take place. Right. We love animals and we conserve animals, and we're the ones that back the conservation groups. That is hunters. And I'm proud to thank every hunter out there and angler for supporting conservation. It's not David Suzuki and Bob Barker who are putting their funds in to backing projects and pilot projects to Ducks Unlimited and all these foundations. That's hunters and anglers. And they're the ones maintaining a manageable resource and being stewards of the land, take it upon ourselves with government to manage a proper resource here in this beautiful country.
Bob Barker, by the way, to our viewers, previously came out and said it was inhumane, among other things. Anyway, Keith, pleasure.
Thank you.